Hi, my name is Margaret Jewett. This is my Module 7 oral presentation. The show that I'm going to be discussing today is The Roseanne Show, and the particular episode that I'm going to be talking about comes to us from Season 1, Episode 22, and it's titled Dear Mom and Dad. In this episode, we meet two new characters who happen to be Roseanne's parents, her dad, Al, and then her mother, Beverly. In the episode, it starts off as a normal episode. Roseanne and her sister Jackie and Dan and some of the kids are sitting at the table and they're all playing cards, joking around like normal. And then all of a sudden, somebody rings the doorbell. So Roseanne gets up after making one of her numerous jokes that she always does and goes and checks the door just to see that it's her parents. So immediately she's in shock. She's like, "Oh my gosh, what are you guys doing here?" And Dan says, comes over and tries to say hey to Al, and he just throws the luggage on him, and instantly we can feel how annoyed that Dan is that her parents are going to be there. And then her mother walks through the door, Beverly, and once again, Beverly just throws her things on Dan. So we can kind of get that feeling right then and there that they don't care so much to see Dan, that they're more so worried about seeing their daughters. And in turn, we get a good feeling that Dan is just like, oh great, here we are. Their parents are in again. It's going to be an annoying time when they stay. It's all of a sudden. So then Hi, my name is Margaret Jewett. This is my Module 7 oral presentation. The show that I chose to discuss today is The Roseanne Show, and the particular episode comes to us from Season 1. It's Episode 22, Dear Mom and Dad. In this episode, we meet two new characters who happen to be Roseanne's parents, Al, her father, and then Beverly, her mother. In this episode, it starts off normal. Everybody's sitting at the kitchen table having a good time, laughing, and then all of a sudden there's a knock at the door. So Roseanne gets up and she checks the door, and boom, it's her parents. So she's automatically in shock, and us as the viewers, we can see that it's written all over her face. And then Jackie comes in and all of the rest of the family fills into the living room, and as her parents are in there welcoming everyone. And instantly we can get the feeling that Dan is somewhat annoyed. When he comes to say hey to Roseanne's father just throws his things on Dan and doesn't even acknowledge him. And then as he closes the door behind him, Roseanne's mother busts right in and throws her things on top of him, which automatically shows us that Dan isn't really too fond of her parents. Of course, he likes them to a certain extent, but he knows, and we know as the viewers, that them being there is going to be a hassle for the full family. So once they're in the door, they're all sitting in the living room, and Roseanne's like, "What are you guys doing here?" And instantly Roseanne's father comes back with, he asked her mother, what they wanted to do for the day, and she didn't know, and so he was like, "Let's go see the kids." So they made a road trip 250 miles to Roseanne's house where Jackie happened to be staying. So then we get transformed into another image of the show, or another part of the show, I should say, and it's where Roseanne's mother is talking to her about Jackie and how Jackie can do this differently and how Jackie can do that differently. And then Roseanne leaves the room and Jackie comes in, and Roseanne's mother is talking to Jackie about what Roseanne can do better, because Roseanne's doing this and Roseanne's doing that. And then once the mother leaves the room, Roseanne comes back in, and it's her and Jackie, and they're talking, and they throw their hands up in the air, and they're rubbing their head, and they're going crazy because just the mom being there is driving them both nuts. Instead of their mother, Beverly, talking to both of them about what they're doing wrong, she talks to the opposite sister. So that in turn makes Roseanne and Jackie go completely crazy. So then the show transitions on to everyone being in the living room again and trying to figure out sleeping arrangements. So there's a huge discussion and then a huge argument about where Beverly and Al are going to sleep. And so, of course, Jackie comes in and says, "Oh, well, last time that we did this." And then Roseanne was like, "How do you know? You weren't even here." And, it turns into a little bit of a funny laughter there. And then we have Becky coming in and saying that she wants to sleep on the cot and it's okay, and then Darlene has something to say about it, and then cute little DJ comes down the stairs and says, I want to sleep in a sleeping bag, and everybody's like, that's the last thing on their minds. So then Roseanne has the final say, as she always does, and says this is what's going to happen. She tells everyone where they're going to sleep, and then she informs Dan that her parents are going to sleep in her room, and her and Dan are going to sleep on the cots in the living room, which Dan is not fond of at all. So then in the middle of the night, Roseanne, dang, I was doing so good. Hi, my name is Margaret Jewett, and this is my Module 7 oral presentation. The show that I'm going to be discussing today is The Roseanne Show. The particular episode comes from Season 1. It's episode 22, and it's titled Dear Mom and Dad. In this episode, we meet two new characters, Roseanne's parents, Al, her father, and Beverly, her mother. The episode starts off normal. We have the whole family together in the kitchen playing cards, laughing, and then the doorbell rings. Roseanne then gets up and she goes and checks the doorbell, and to her surprise, her parents are there. So the parents are there, they come in, and instantly we can tell that Dan is annoyed because the parents are just throwing their things on him, not even acknowledging him. So then the episode transitions on to why the parents were there, and then the mother's in the kitchen sitting down, and Roseanne comes in, and Roseanne's mother starts talking to her about all these things that Jackie is doing wrong and what she wants Jackie to change. Well, then Jackie enters the kitchen, and Roseanne leaves, and then Roseanne's mother is talking to Jackie about all these things that Roseanne does wrong and how she needs to change them, and so on. So then Roseanne comes back into the kitchen, and the mother leaves, leaving just Roseanne and Jackie, and instantly they're going crazy. They're throwing their hands through their hair, they're jumping up and down. We get a full visual of both of them, how annoyed they are. And then they decide that they want to confront their mother. So they call the mom into the kitchen, and Jackie starts talking about how the mother needs to be more direct towards them instead of going to the other sister, and so on. And then the episode changes into where the family's in the living room, and they're trying to figure out sleeping arrangements. So Roseanne has to say about it, Dan has to say about it, Becky has something to say, Darlene has something to say, Jackie has something to say, and then we see little DJ coming down the steps saying, I want to sleep in a sleeping bag, which gives us a viewer a good laugh in the mix of that whole argument. So then, like always, Roseanne has the final say, and she chooses where everybody is going to sleep. So she tells her parents that they are going to sleep in her room, and her and Dan are going to sleep on the cots that are in the living room, which ultimately makes Dan very mad because he's starting a new job the next day, as he always seems to be. And so in the middle of the night, Dan and Roseanne are talking about, how annoyed they are because just before they went to bed, Roseanne's mom said that they were going to be moving to Lanford. They had no idea how they would be able to handle it if her parents moved to Lanford. So the next morning, early in the morning, 4:30 a.m., Roseanne's dad wakes up and goes to the front door and gets the newspaper. And as he does that, he makes this god-awful noise, which wakes Roseanne and Dan up after they had what seems like just fallen asleep. So then her mother gets up and she starts making him breakfast, and so Dan and Roseanne are up for the day. So the show transitions to the family being in the kitchen, and then the kids leaving for school, and then Roseanne confronts her mother about her and her father moving to Lanford, saying how that if they did, they were going to have to move to the opposite side of town, and how them being there really just makes everybody crazy because her parents are such a hassle. And then her parents laugh and are like, why do you take everything so seriously? We were just kidding. We're not really going to stay there. We're not going to move to Lanford. And then they announce that they're going to be leaving. They've stayed one night and they're ready to go. They have to get back on the road, which puts Roseanne and Dan and Jackie all at ease. And then we kind of get a feeling that Roseanne is a little sad that her parents are leaving because she does like them being there, but they do make everyone crazy. So that's pretty much the episode in a nutshell. The next thing I want to talk about is the production styles that we received throughout the episode. The first one being live studio. We can hear in the background sometimes some clapping and sometimes some laughing, which gives more added effects to us as the viewer. The next thing is the long shots that we receive. For instance, the time when Roseanne and Jackie were in the kitchen, like throwing their hands in their hair and jumping up and down, we can see the long shot of both of their bodies and how they're reacting with their mother being there. The next thing is a medium close-up. When Jackie and Roseanne confront their mother about how crazy she is for not coming to them directly, we get a close-up of Jackie's face, which is, stern, telling her mom how she truly feels. And then we get a close-up of Roseanne's face where she's kind of like timid and back and trying not to hurt her mom's feelings. And then we also notice that they use a lot of close-ups. For instance, when Roseanne and Dan are laying down in bed on the cots, we get a close-up of Roseanne's face when Dan makes her really mad and she's really stern. And so we get a really good feeling of how Roseanne is feeling at that point in time. And then there's also a lot of camera work. It captures a lot of the emotions and feelings that we receive. So by using the long shots and the medium close-ups and then the really close-ups to see how the characters are truly feeling, so it can come back to us so we get that effect. And about the show, why I chose it, honestly, I just chose it because it was one that I hadn't watched, but the significance of it to me is how true it can be when in-laws come in and how annoying and how crazy they can make everyone. And it's more so, I haven't had that experience. I don't have parents to have that experience with, but I can only imagine how overwhelming it can be when in-laws come in, out of the blue, unannounced. It's unrealistic it's realistic and truly, makes families crazy whenever it's just out of the blue, unplanned. So that was my summary of the episode, and I hope you enjoyed watching.